Hello friends, this is Dr. Amarjit Kaur, Professor of Accounting and Business Communication at the Department of Management, Gurugram University, Gurugram. I am author of 60 research papers and have either edited or authored books which is in 11 in number, and I am fortunate to have taught at North Dakota State University in USA and Valparaiso University in USA for complete one academics year. And it's been about 30 years, 30 plus years that I've been working into food industry and education industry. It's my privilege that I'm here with you to talk about creative thinking skills. So, creative thinking skills, as we know, are actually soft skills where we use creativity, where we use collaboration, analysis and many more such things to solve any problem in the business or in personal life. That is what creative thinking skill in general is. We have already discussed in detail about the types of creative thinking in the previous session. Now today we are going to talk about how to improve creative thinking skills. So, we shall be talking about means and ways to improve upon creative thinking skills. How can one develop creative thinking skills, right? How can one improve upon his or her creative thinking skills? So, let us discuss that. I am going to give you certain tips about that, how to improve creative thinking skills. Number 1, find a mentor. Number 2, seek learning opportunities. Number 3, practice your skills. Number 4, seek feedback. So, these are the 4 important ways or means to improve upon creative thinking skills. So, the first one is find a mentor. How does it help? You may observe at your workplace that there are people who are just very good in thinking differently. Everybody is just thinking what most of the people are thinking, but you will find a person or 2 people who are different, who have their different opinion, and which is most of the time proving true and real. So, you think you should be very good observant that who are such people who are thinking out of box, who are able to look what others are not able to look. So, find such mentors, right. So, mentor does not mean somebody who just elder to you in age, who is just elder to you in experience, who has more experience. It need not to be that fact. You may find a mentor who is of your age, maybe younger to you, but he or she thinks differently. You need not to stick to one gender, it could be of different gender, right, unless the purpose is to learn, to develop creative thinking skill. Does not matter what kind, position or city the person is in. You may find a mentor from different city, different department, different company, different country even. So, first thing is, if you really want to develop a creative thinking, or at least have somebody in your mind that he is somebody who is good in creative thinking. So, you can take him as mentor even without talking, by looking at his action, by observing him. So, it is better if you have somebody explicit as your mentor, but if it is not possible, you can actually have somebody as your mentor as implied one, as implicit, right. So, by observing him or her, by looking at the way he or she resolve the issues or solve the problem. So, first thing is find a mentor. If you think of accepting somebody as a mentor, it means you accept that you have a need to develop your creative thinking further, right. So, that is a great beginning. If somebody accepts that, yes, I need to learn better or more or aspects, or I need to hone on my creative thinking skill, means you are already into the path of learning, right. So, that is how the mentoring will help. The second way to improve your creative thinking is seek learning opportunities. If people are collaborating, to resolve some issue, some problem at your workplace, be it developing a product, developing a process, reviewing a problem, whatever. So, if there is a learning opportunity for you, you should not be hesitant in accepting that. Accept that opportunity to learn, to grow, because certainly, if you accept the learning opportunity in that team, there would be somebody who is better than you. There would be people who are not good as you are. There would be people who are who are bad or who are worse than you, but there would be people who are better than you in decision making. If you are honest to yourself, if you are open minded, open mindedness is a requirement of creative thinking skill, developing creative thinking skill, right. So, you will seek those learning opportunities for the benefit of yourself, for the benefit of developing your skill, your creative thinking skill, right. So, that is the second means or ways to develop creative thinking skill. Third is practice your skill. Once you are in the process of learning, whatever you are learning, try to use it during the problems, during the meetings, during the interactions with others, right. So, say for example, you learned a particular aspect of learning, creative thinking skill in previous meetings or from your mentor. So, just go and experiment it. How effectively does it come? Let us say you learn to write creatively, you learn to analyze the data, you learned to counter question, you learned the skill of storytelling while expressing the problem. So, whatever you have learned, practice that skill, by using it. Just do not be a mook spectator or silent spectator in any meeting, or just do not be the part of the team without taking any initiative or without being interested in solving the problem or giving your input. It is not that I have learned, I will keep that learning to myself. No, just use it, try it out. Does it work? Because if does not, then you may need to think that am I at the right place, am I thinking rightly, or do I need to develop something further, right. So, that can be assessed, that either your learning is correct or your learning is in the right direction or not, so if you practice what you have learned. And then be open to seek feedback, be open to ask people, do you think it will work? Do you think I am thinking in the right direction? Do you think this will work? So, just be open in seeking the feedback. Will this idea work? Can we take this step now and we can postpone the second step later, and then we go to the solution in the fourth step or third step, whatever is coming in the process. Try to seek feedback at every step, and if you are able to seek the feedback by respecting others' view while listening to them, believe me or not, you shall be able to solve the problem effectively, right. So, seek feedback. So, these are the ways and means to improve creative thinking skills. Now, we will be talking about how to use creative thinking at workplace. This is very important. So, I am going to give you few tips. So, how and where you can use creative thinking skills. First thing is developing new strategies. So, second is solving a challenge. Third is enhancing productivity. Fourth is stronger interpersonal connections. Fifth is higher self-awareness. Sixth is improved problem solving capabilities. So, how can we use creative thinking at workplace? The first, as I said, is while developing new strategies. So, whenever new strategies are developed by a company, by the management, you can use creative thinking, because they are talking about new strategy, right. So, nothing can be more effectively implied than the creative thinking skills in that situation, because we are talking about how to develop a new strategy. So, what strategy should we be developing? What should be the extent of that strategy? Who should be involved in developing that strategy? And what aspects of the strategy should be written or documented? So, there are so many aspects. So if we develop, if we use creative thinking in that, it's going to be very effective for you in your career. Solving a challenge, you know, there's a challenge which has come up to your team, to your boss, to your company for that matter. You know, for example, Corona was a big challenge. People in the education industry, I come from education industry, you know, there were institutions and colleges who were able to you know, introduce online teaching, synchronize, asynchronize both at, at a very fast pace, very quickly. So they were, because the challenge was how to conduct classes during Corona time, because students are at home, teachers are at home. You know, I have seen radio jockeys, they were carrying their shows from home during Corona time, right? So challenge was how to conduct your show, how to run your show, radio show, how to deliver lectures, how to conduct exam. We faced so many problems. How to visit a doctor, for that matter, doctor was say, facing a problem, how to give consultation to patient, people were getting sick, sitting at home, you know, for other issues than Corona, because there were people who were suffering from many ailments, be it cancer, you know, be it CKD, be it you know, higher blood pressure. There were so many other problems people were facing for their health, right? So we can use creative thinking in solving a challenge. So identify a challenge and then think, how creatively how can I solve this problem by using any of the types of creative thinking. There are so many types, we know, right? So so by looking at the problem or the challenge, I can think, well, how can I solve this problem? Enhancing productivity. So we can actually improve productivity by using creative thinking at workplace, because if we are using creative thinking, our problem is solved more effectively than others, right, who are not using creative thinking skill at workplace. So here the problem is solved, not only solved for the short run, but all aspects, major all aspects which could be seen by the team who are using creative thinking, they are addressed at one go, and it increases the productivity, right? So productivity is enhanced by using creative thinking at workplace. The fourth point was that the interpersonal connections, they get stronger. How come? How it has been possible that the interpersonal connections can become much stronger than otherwise? Because one of the requirement in creative thinking skill is the collaborative efforts, right? So when we are using collaboration, when we are collaborating with others to solve the problem, I need to talk to people, I need to write to them, I need to talk to them. That interpersonal connection, that's basically interpersonal communication is taking place, and because of that some connection is developing, right? So you may not be able to get connected with all the people you are dealing, maybe with 20%, 40%, 50%, the percentage varies from person to person, right? So the interpersonal connections get developed, you get to know others, you get to express well, you get to hear to others' opinion, you get to express yourself, people respect you for your opinion, you respect them for their opinion, for their views, and that's how the connections are getting stronger. The, you know, so some kind of connection is building upon between the teams. So that's the use of creative thinking at workplace. The fifth way where how we use creative thinking is that higher self awareness. Because you are collaborating with people, you are expressing confidently about your opinion, about your analysis in meetings, and in those collaborative discussions, during those interpersonal connections, you are able to see that where did you go wrong, did you think correct or did you think wrong. So you are actually getting awareness about your own thinking, your own way to approach the problem, your own way to handle the issue, right. So there would be higher self awareness, and that is the use of creative thinking, because everybody is not very well aware about himself, about his actions, about his thinking, about his presentation, right. So the people who are creative thinkers are rather more self aware than the people who do not. So this is the one of the use of creative thinking skills. Then the last point here was improved problem solving capabilities, because you are aware self, you have a better awareness about yourself, your interpersonal skills, connections are better, you are listening to others, you are trying to solve the challenge, and your productivity is up, and because of this your capabilities to solve the problems are developing. You may not observe, you will realize, wow, I am able to solve such problems so quickly like this, right. So you will have improved problem solving capabilities because you are using creative thinking skills at your workplace. Now I am going to talk about that how do we highlight creative thinking in our different presentations, be it resume, cover letter, job interview. So highlighting creative thinking. So this is what I am going to discuss now. We can highlight in resume, we can highlight in cover letter to resume, we can highlight during the interview. So first of all, by this time we have a clarity that creative thinking skills are of utmost importance, because this develops you as individuals who can interact with people, who can connect with people, who can have mentors, who can become mentors, who can solve problems, who can actually take up things very effectively. So if you are able to do all this, don't you think you should be expressing this in your resume? So resume or your CV, curriculum vitae or resume, we know the difference between the two, I hope we all know. So in your resume you can express, or your CV, either in whatever you are using, basis on the field you come from, basis on the experience you have. So how can we express, highlight our creative thinking skill in resume? You can actually make a different column of skills, soft skills. And since creative thinking is one of the soft skill, you can actually mention it, creative thinker, creative thinking as soft skill. So your good effective communication is one of the soft skill, so could be your creative thinking, right. So we can mention clearly creative thinking skill in our resume by putting it in a separate head. We may like to actually create another column, another row of creative thinking where we can exhibit, because if we think we are really good in creative thinking and you want to encash on that skill, you really want to bring this out very effectively, then in that case you may like to write how did you use creative thinking in solving the problem. So you can actually mention problem number 1, 2, 3 at different employers, and that how did you use creative, you can illustrate this, that you possess creative thinking in your resume by creating a separate head and making a write up of few lines, 2, 3, 4 lines, for few examples. You may quote problem solved through creative thinking, you may not elaborate it. It's up to you that how do you want to. It will all depend. Before you actually write in your resume, you must read the JD, job description, twice, thrice, and then see how much is the importance of creative thinking skill for this particular job. Do I really need to emphasize upon, because you are eating up the space of a resume. If it is resume, just one pager, right? So you are going to take certain part of the space available on one page, right? So you need to be very, very judicial in deciding that shall I be mentioning this particular aspect or not. right? So, highlighting creative thinking in resume should be actually thought about by referring to the profile, job profile, and then see which aspect of creative thinking. You may emphasize upon collaboration, you may like to emphasize upon communication, you may like to emphasize upon diverged thinking skill, analytical skill, right? So, you can actually make a very effective presentation in your resume by making a separate head or using case studies to illustrate or using just few examples to illustrate. The second is how can you use and express that you have good creative thinking skill in your cover letter. So, what is cover letter? We know the cover letter is whenever we apply for a particular role or a job, other words, we prepare a letter which is put on the cover, as an initial document, first document. So, we call it as cover letter. So, it is a letter addressed to the recruiter mentioning that what I am applying for, why I am applying for. We may add certain summary, brief of the achievements including one and skills, including the skill of creative thinking skill, right. But how would you decide about that, how much space you should eat up from this cover letter? It will depend upon the JD, the job description which has been floated or against which you are applying to. You are applying to particular role. So, you need to look at that, is it really required to use the space to express creative thinking skill? If the job is such where creative thinking is not required, then why should you be using that space to emphasize upon creative thinking in your cover letter? Cover letter is anyway a small document, it is just one pager, half page, 3/4 page, right. So, we should be highlighting in the cover letter only if we are sure about our creative thinking skill and we know that in this particular JD the creative thinking is demanded, is being looked after. So, you may like to read about the company, you may like to read about the role, you may like to read about the past experience of the people, you may like to read about reviews from the current employees before you decide to write in the cover letter. And the last is job interviews. How can actually you use and express creative thinking skills? So, creative thinking, as we know, is a problem solving technique where we solve the problem very innovatively by referring to the data, by collaborating with people, by actually by looking at the profile carefully and by looking at your own capabilities, we can actually express very effectively during the job interview that this is the creative thinking skill I have. This is the creative thinking skill I have used in the past. You should try to look for the opportunity to connect the experience you have as creative thinker to the situation, right. So, try to draw some clues from the discussion which is going on and see in which situation your creative thinking capabilities can be brought in. So, it is a job interview. So, you cannot go straight and just say that I want to talk about creative thinking skills I have. Wait, you should not be going so directly. Just wait that during the process how it turns out to be and try to pick the clue. As soon as you are getting even smallest of the small clue, try to drag the conversation towards that where you could actually mention about the creative thinking skills you have. So, this is how we highlight creative thinking skills in resume, cover letter and job interview. So, friend, this was all about that how can we improve creative thinking skills by finding a mentor, by learning opportunities, by practicing our skill and looking forward. We also talked about the creative thinking at workplace, how it can be used effectively, right. So, by developing new strategies or for the purpose of solving any challenge, these creative thinking skills can be used for many more purposes. And lastly, we discussed that how can one highlight creative thinking in his or her resume, cover letter and job interview. So, this was the whole discussion about creative thinking skills. I hope it will be useful to you and it will help you to grow further in your career if you are doing already employed. If you are not, then you should be using the creative thinking skill in your resume and cover letter to get the employment, and certainly it does work. So, with this I would like to wind up, friends. Thank you very much.